So on this one we're going to talk about internal angles, and we're going to talk about how to deal with wet angles on sand and cement, and very similar to internal corners, but this one is interior rendering. So we'll be looking very closely at that and what's involved for leaving it ready for skim coating with internal wet angles. So of course you will need have all the wall coated and straightened, and also you potentially could rub up one wall then do the second wall. As you can see, I'm working into a black corner here, so this will be a wet angle, and this will be perfect for this little demonstration video to show you how I deal with these. So the way I'm going to tackle this one is I'm going to get all this bigger wall on first, straightened up, and then I will rub it up, called devil floating. And basically what that is just keying the wall up ready for your skim coat. I'll also drop links to the previous videos here that will give you even further understanding of what I'm talking about. But basically I'm going to get this wall on, straightened up and rubbed up ready for skim before I then start onto the second wall that will create my wet angle. And at the end of the video, or near the end, I'll give you a real close-up of exactly how I finish them and leave them really tidy for skimming. Obviously these corners and your angles, guys, is what really makes or breaks a job, especially for beginners, so this should give you a real head start. So I am doing it this way simply because of suction, and this wall is taken up pretty nicely, where after I get it straightened it's sitting nice, ready to float finish, ready for the skim. And if it wasn't going as quick, my next tactic would be to just carry on and keep floating walls, keep applying my sand and cement render, straightening, and then I could fall back floating. If you are on big sites or you're doing a full house, 9 times out of 10 you won't have quite as warm as weather as I'm having, and the walls will be fresher, so the likelihood is that you could probably throw on 3 to 4 walls, maybe even 5, before you need to fall back and start finishing them as I'm doing here. But the most important thing about this is when you're coming into the internal corner is to get it right and tidy, ready for your skim. So now that I have this wall finished, I always do try my best to clean away the bottoms, and I will not throw that stuff out, guys. I tend to wet it up or mix it through fresh stuff again, so don't tend to have too much waste on my jobs. So as you can see, I have the wall to my left here. That was the door wall. It's all floated, angles cleaned along the top and far left, door frames washed, so that's ready for skim basically in a day or two. And now you can see that I'm filling out this wee leg here, which is creating a wet angle, a soft angle on the sand and cement. So these can be very tricky, so my advice to you would be, first starting these off is, if you can, finish one wall at a time or do some opposites, and that will allow that 5 first walls you did to take up a little bit and tighten, so that they're not just so easily marked and stuff isn't so easily splatted to them. So that'll give you half a chance. And my next advice would be is, when you are coating to it, to try and use all your skill and concentration not to dig in. Now obviously it can happen, and it will happen. It happens all the time, it happens to me. Even when I'm straightening here, there's a good chance I can dig into the corner a little bit, but you want to try to avoid that as much as possible. Especially if you were doing a float finish, a smooth float finish, you really want to avoid the likes of that, because it'll just make life so much handier if you do. But again, you still have to have this wall straightened, and obviously you have to work up to the other wall. So there will be, you're going to have your challenges, but just try your best, take your time, don't dig into the first wall you've got finished, and just try to be as accurate as possible in the angle. And you'll find that when it comes to rubbing up and straightening, you won't have to be doing too much tidying up on the wall you have already finished, and it will make for life being that much easier. So once I have it all straightened up, it's then time to rub when, of course, time to rub when the render's actually tight enough to be rubbed. Again, you'll have to do the finger test, run the trowel up it, run the float up it, just see how wet and soft it is. If it's too soft, let it sit before you do try to rub it. Again, you can see it's handy enough one to rub there as it's not a big area, that wee lip. There's going to be a doorway here. As you can see, there's a bit of plasterboard running along the top as well. But just rubbing, I have a bit of a rule to contend with too, but basically I've rubbed it pretty close, and that's what you want to do, guys. You want to go rub in as close as you can, take any snatters away, and even use your float to further smoothen it out and straighten it up. But again, after you do all these, you need to double check with the straight edge and make sure your angle's still nice and straight. So now that you have everything all rubbed up and floated, this is the very important stage here, a real handy trick to know, guys, and that's cut out your corners, clean up your angle here. And the way to do that is run the trowel flat down both ways. Nice clean trowel, make sure there's not too much snatters on the back end of your trowel. Again, you'll need to do this at the tops as well, guys. Clean off that sealing angle. You don't want to be trying to scrape this when it's all rock hard the next day or two. Get it all when it's nice and soft and nice and easy now, nice and clean. And again, I possibly do this a couple of times up and down the angle just to make sure. You can see the stuff coming out, and that's okay. And it's also okay to then rub it again after if you feel it's too smooth. Just don't bring the float right into the corner. And that line you see, guys, is okay as well. That's just where I've dug the trowel right in. That's fine. Don't be afraid to push it into the opposite walls. That's the way to get a nice square angle. And this is basically the top tip, guys, for cleaning your soft corners. Again, this could be done with finishing sand and cement as well. So at the end of the day, don't forget, keep everything clean. Tools, frames, angles. We've got tons of other videos on the channel, guys, so hopefully you can subscribe and feel free to poke about on the channel and see similar videos and other plastering and rendering videos.